Rumi, what do you think about all the press saying that you were hard to work with? That you hate your fans? Is it true that you shoved the fan to the floor and spit in his face? Oh, goodness.
See, this is why we can't give celebrities anything. These new celebs are doing way too much.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Imurgency and welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry for whatever that was. I'm just going to put that out there. I know the skits have been fun for previous videos, but at this point I am just trying shit out. So not every skit intro can be a hit. Shame. But today we are talking about pop stars, as we tend to do on this channel, and more specifically about the new pop stars, the new pop girlies out here. Because some may say that the new pop girlies are wilding right now. Between acts like Chappell Roan, Ice Spice, and Chinouriri, there have been a varying slew of controversy and hard times that have fell on them where the public is sort of thinking maybe launching people into superstardom without any preparation wasn't the best idea. And now we have people like Chappell Roan making videos on the internet calling out fans that are asking her for pictures, stalking her, and just generally doing too much. Chinouriri having to pull out of her US leg tour stops because of financial issues, and Ice Spice dealing with a debut album slump, with it not performing as well as people thought it would, and people generally just not really vibing with the album. So with all of this combined, it's understandable why some may say that the pop girls are struggling right now. And it may be their fault. Or is it? That's what we're gonna be breaking down and talking about in this video. So if you have not already, sit back, grab a snack, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and maybe follow me on my social medias at Imurgency on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And get ready for a show because this video is all about the pop girls. So the first situation I wanna talk about, because I feel like it contextualizes all of the other case studies in this general theme, is Chappell Roan. Now, I've made a video on Chappell Roan fairly recently talking about her come up, her rise, and how I think that she's changing the music industry forever. And I still very much think those things. I also did mention in that video that Chappell was struggling a bit with this newfound fame because it was something that came to her very quickly and kind of unexpectedly. And it seemed like she was struggling to come to grips with everything that had been coming with her and her new career and life situation. And this seems to still be the case because Chappell Roan has recently come on social media and made a pair of TikToks expressing her concerns with recent fan interactions, calling the way in which people have been treating her both in person and online, as well as the way that they've been treating her family online in real life as weird and unusual.
I don't care that abuse and harassment, stalking, whatever, is a normal thing to do to people who are famous or a little famous, whatever. I don't care that it's normal. I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job, the career field I've chosen. That's not normal. That's weird. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make. That's weird. If you saw a random woman on the street, would you yell at her from the car window? Would you harass her in public? Would you go up to a random lady and say, "Can I get a photo with you?" And she's like, "No, what the f-?" And then you get mad at this random lady? Would you be offended if she says no to your time because she has her own time? Would you stalk her family? Would you follow her around? Would you try to dissect her life and bully her online? This is a lady you don't know. I'm a random bitch. You're a random bitch. Just think about that for a second, okay?
Now, before I say what I gotta say, I know you can see my legs right now and that may be jarring. You're welcome. But like I said before, these general sentiments aren't anything necessarily new from Chappell, because she's previously expressed how she hasn't been the biggest fan of fame since she's essentially achieved it at an objectively crazy scale in the past year. As I mentioned in my previous video, which you can see here, thank God I am standing up so that my editor Carlos can fully put in the full thumbnail uninterrupted. Shout out to you, Carlos. During her initial blow up earlier this year, she's been seen really struggling with the concept of fame, with her sometimes even breaking down on stage, really taking in the moment and being overwhelmed by the incredible scale at which she has taken off. Like, I don't know if y'all saw her Lollapalooza crowds. People were saying that she may have brought in the largest Lollapalooza crowd ever for a performance, which is insane considering she literally became mainstream this year. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't even think Chappell Roan was headlining Lollapalooza that year. And Lollapalooza is the same festival that has previously headlined people like Ariana Grande and I think Billie Eilish. So I know this diva was stressed. Actually, Speaking of diva, let's get into the internet's reactions really quick. So generally fans' reactions were pretty split, with the side of the internet seeing these videos of her that she's posted, saying that this proves that she's not ready to be a pop star, that she's kind of inevitably slated to become, and that this kind of response is indicative of diva behavior. And might I say, just very quickly, just to put a pin, actually no, I won't put a pin in it because this is very much in the same stream of consciousness. You know a pop star is about to be a pop star, like a pop legend. You heard the on that? You know I'm serious. You know they're about to be a pop legend if they get diva allegations. Like once a pop star gets diva allegations, they're set. They're set, especially this early in her career. If Chappell Roan can get diva allegations within her first year of being mainstream, you know she's here to stay. Because who else are the known pop divas? Mariah Carey, Ariana Grande, Lady Gaga, Whitney Houston, Christina Aguilera. Shall I go on? The list is long and mighty. Once you become a diva, the career is up. Diva down, career up. This similar group of people, or maybe not the same exact group of people, but people that are also on the anti-Chappell hate train right now, are also bringing up things about her being ungrateful about her success, or her taking her achievements and her success as a music artist for granted right now, which I don't think is necessarily the case right off the bat. Like, I don't think she's taking it for granted. I think the girl is just generally overwhelmed. Like, I saw a tweet the other day that was like, Chappell Roan never thought that she was going to be this famous. Like, her goal was to be like gay famous, but to be this mainstream, to have your album, I think her album just recently went #1 or was released in the top 10 of the Billboard 200 a year after its release. For her to be pulling in such numbers, such huge crowds, when this wasn't the case for her literally a year ago, like, my girl is just overwhelmed and doesn't know what to do with this. Like, going from idolizing your pop legends to being one of them and being acknowledged by them, like, of course you're not going to know how to initially deal with all that or to process all of that. Like, I honestly feel for the girl because I wouldn't know how to respond or to deal with any of that if it was all just given to me. And she's talked about how she's been thrown acting roles and all these other things that she just doesn't want to do. And while I will say the delivery may not be what people want to hear, she's not saying anything wrong. Like, she just, like, this is a lifestyle that's being launched on her and it's not anything of what she necessarily expected. And with that said, there have been people that have been defending her and saying that she is not wrong in the things that she's saying, and that she shouldn't have to plead online for people to stop stalking her family or to stop being generally weird to her and to just generally respect her time, with that being the commonly understood thing, with any form of criticism being the delivery of her videos. So to summarize, some people are upset with Chappell's response, calling her out for not being ready for this job, while others are defending her, calling her videos realistic complaints for someone in that position. One thing that's for certain though is that no one should ever feel upset for calling or texting, which is why this video's sponsor, Mint Mobile, is here to help. Mint Mobile is an affordable premium wireless service with plans that all include unlimited talk, text, and data on the nation's largest 5G network. Those plans also including free calling to Mexico and Canada, with hotspot and tethering included. I've been using Mint Mobile for the past couple of weeks because you know I never want to promote anything on this channel without trying it myself first, and I've genuinely really been enjoying the service. They're really straightforward and don't try to confuse you with any of the corporate jargon that you get at other wireless services. In fact, they even go as far to tell you if you should actually be paying less for your service, which I think is kind of mind-blowing. Mint Mobile has plans that come in 3, 6, and 12-month durations, and the more months you buy up front, the more you save. And you can do what I did and sign up and activate in minutes with eSIM from wherever you may be and keep your phone number and existing contacts when you switch. So if you're interested in getting started with Mint Mobile, you can click the link in my description below, and new customers can get the unlimited plan for only $15 a month for the first 3 months. Thanks so much, Mint Mobile, for sponsoring this section of the video. Let's talk more about whether these criticisms have any merit when it comes to Chappell. So with that said, is there any merit to these criticisms? Are we really talking about anything, or are we just yapping? Well, I have thoughts.
That's
Why are you asking me these?
That'd poison you. That's polypropylene.
I think, as we've talked about quite extensively on this channel before in previous videos, especially when it comes to parasocial relationships between public figures and celebrities and their fans and audiences, there can often be a weird or uncomfortable dynamic at play where people assume they know everything about their faves' lives, or people assume that they know everything about these public figures or these celebrities' lives based on what they've seen and based on the work that they like to consume. And from there, they expect a lot from these people. Like, we literally saw this whole thing go down with Doja Cat last last year, where she was fighting the "she hates her fans" allegations, where in hindsight it's pretty clear that she didn't hate her fans. She just hated the people that were keeping up with her or following her, that were either out of touch or just unhinged fans, that didn't respect her boundaries, growth, or autonomy as a person or an artist. Just generally people that played too much into the parasocial relationship and required these things of her as a person, despite not knowing her, as if they knew her without knowing her. And we all saw how that played out, especially with Doja's album rollout last year. And this is all to say that I think that there is for sure a learning curve when it comes to Chappell, when it comes to how to address things like this and how to set those boundaries with your audience and how to sort of navigate the parasocial relationship between supporter and celebrity. Because as Chappell was alluding to in her video, yes, just because this sort of thing comes with the territory of being a public figure, it doesn't mean that it should. And as an act that is so new to the scene and blowing up in a way that we really haven't seen, and I'd argue more than a decade, it's just a whole adjustment. And with that said, I do think it's kind of important to take a look back to see how pop acts of the past have sort of navigated this whole parasocial relationship thing and address these sorts of allegations. Now, I will say, to be fair, I don't think anyone has really addressed this exceptionally well. This is something that I feel like all people in the public eye, and especially pop stars, sort of deal with. It's something that comes up every year for any main pop star. Like, there will always be someone in your stan base that will go too far, will do too much, and will either threaten their mental or physical safety, just because that is the case. But I think what's important here is how these pop stars sort of address that and set those boundaries so that it doesn't happen as much, or at least in the same way. And one artist that immediately comes to mind, just because I'm a stan and because I feel like it kind of translates because it's a more recent case study, is Ariana Grande. Because I honestly feel like her audience is her biggest blessing and curse at some times. She's had to establish boundaries with both supporters and haters throughout her career, whether that's scaling back on meet and greets during her tours for the sake of her own mental health and anxiety, trying to set boundaries about comments about her body or her relationships. She's really had to learn when to and when not to speak on certain things, and especially when it's time to address her fans about certain behaviors that they may be exhibiting online or in person. Like, I remember most recently with the drop of Eternal Sunshine, when everyone was hearing the songs for the first time, and understandably were getting mad at Dalton, her ex-husband, who the majority of the songs were about. She hopped online to tell her fans not to go after anyone online based on what they heard on Eternal Sunshine or just in general. And with that, I think that mostly people stopped, or at least it wasn't as bad, because if y'all were there for like the first couple days of Eternal Sunshine dropping and you were on Twitter and you saw what people were saying, it got a lot better.
That dinosaur been working my nerves all night.
And this kind of response and relationship with fans is something that's a continuous thing and an ever-evolving thing. And it seems like these pop stars sort of learn how to navigate that better with time, to a point where I feel like she's kind of got a hang of it, because she's been in the game for over a decade. Like, it's no secret, you can look up interviews and fan interactions with Ariana from her early days of stardom, where they were seemingly more awkward and maybe a little bit more uncomfortable, like especially coming off of Victorious and becoming a pop star, not really understanding fully how to handle all of that and the fan reception. Of course, she always came out of a place of gratitude, but like, fans of pop stars are notoriously intense, which is not necessarily a bad thing. That just means that they really love the work that you do and love you as a person and as an idol. It's just a lot. And in response to like the whole Chappell thing, I've been seeing a lot of clips online of Gaga talking about her fans during her early days.
Well, the fans lead the music, and it just so happens that a lot of my fans have shared with me their stories. I traveled all over the world, and every night when the show was over, I would stop outside the arena and take pictures and sign autographs. And sometimes when it was really cold out, I would invite 30 fans on the bus and give them hot chocolate and give them Cheetos. And it wasn't until they shared their stories with me that I realized how like them I was. And I began to relive all of my struggles as a teenager. It's not like, thanks for buying my record, you. It's like, thanks for buying my record, and I will live and die and breathe my work and my art to protect your dreams.
And people online have been saying that this is sort of how a pop star should be, because a lot of people already compare Chappell to Gaga because they believe that Chappell is on the same trajectory. That first interview clip was from the beginning of Gaga's career. There's other one of Gaga that kind of shares similar sentiments to what Chappell was saying, came from a little bit later in her career.
I feel sad when I'm overworked and that I've just become a money-making machine, and that my passion and my creativity take a back seat. That makes me unhappy. So what did I do? I started to say, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. I'm not taking that picture. I'm not going to that event. I'm not standing by that because that's not what I stand for. And slowly but surely, I remembered who I am. And then you go home and you look in the mirror and you're like, yes, I can go to bed with you every night. Because that person, I know that person.
And then on the complete other side of the spectrum, you have a pop star like Beyonce. And Beyonce, she wasn't always like this, because early interviews from Beyonce, you could tell she was out there and she was interacting with fans, and she was just really out there in general. But Beyonce nowadays, she don't speak on nothing she don't want to. And she loves her fans, but she loves them from a distance, because she knows that the Beehive gets crazy. And that's real. That's real. We love Beyonce now. And we can tell she really appreciates it, but she does go the extra step to make sure that her and her peoples are good and are safe and don't really have to deal with any of that. Like, I know she pays Julius the big bucks to make sure that if she doesn't feel like taking pictures, if she doesn't feel like talking to people, she doesn't. And when she does interact with fans and people, which she has been doing more recently, it's more in a low-key setting, more in a controlled setting. But in general, people have been trying to pry into her personal life and her family's life for years, but that lady just has so much money, so much connections, and those NDAs are too ironclad that she's kind of just gone the whole restricted, elusive route. Now let's pivot over to our girl, Rachel Chinouriri. I promise this will all make sense at the end. If you're unfamiliar with Rachel Chinouriri, first of all, you need to tap in. Log into Spotify, log into Apple Music, log on to YouTube Music if you have to, and look up Rachel Chinouriri and stream some of that music, because it is good. It is good. If you are looking for a new black alt pop fave, then tap into Rachel. But the reason why we're bringing up Rachel in the context of this conversation about the new artist struggling is that she recently came online to announce that she is pulling out of the US leg of her tour with other artist Remy Wolf because of her financial strains. And this came as a shock to a lot of people, because Rachel has been having a great year. She dropped her debut album this year. She's still definitely a smaller and up and coming artist, but all things were looking up for her. Like, she's been gaining a lot of commercial success, and to have her drop an entire leg of a tour was just shocking. Like she stated in her announcement, "This year I've invested all my savings and earnings into my shows, styling, and band to be able to tour. While my debut album has opened so many amazing opportunities, the financial strain of touring has become too much." Which again is honestly a shame, because she's been having an amazing debut album rollout, but it really speaks to the startup cost of being an independent artist, because as far as I know, she is independent. So she's funding all of this herself, which I don't think people understand how expensive that really is, especially when you are trying to take off. The article in the Rolling Stone talks about how this is common, how financial strain and tour cancellations are commonplace now for a lot of newer artists, because touring doesn't really bring in as much money as it necessarily costs, or as touring really used to back in the day. And in many cases, these artists are actually losing money going on these tours, unless you are ultra famous or blowing up. And honestly, that is just part of the perils of being a small independent artist. Like, you are paying for everything is out of pocket, and especially when you want to go on an international tour. Rachel is a UK artist. Traveling overseas, I assume, is expensive, and touring itself is expensive. Like, I don't think a lot of people really think about the costs that go into putting on a show. Like, you're paying for things like transport, travel, accommodations, staff fees, musician fees for like the band and everyone. You're paying for the venue spot, the food and provisions, the fan perks, the fan merch, the incidentals, and the insurance behind the place. Like, that is a large price tag that goes on for every stop. And for an entire tour, it makes sense. Like, yes, going on tour can really help get your name out there and really engage with your fans, but if it drives you broke in the process, where you can't really afford to put out music afterwards, or really just sustain a lifestyle afterwards, is it really worth it? Which kind of brings up the conversation of like notoriety versus financial success, because I've talked about this a bit on the channel before, more specifically when it came to acting and fame. But fame itself doesn't pay the bills. And in fact, a lot of girlies in the public eye are struggling, and I'm using girlies in a gender neutral term here. Like, a lot of the guys are struggling as well. I don't want to make it seem like, you know, and none of this is meant to be a dig at them specifically, because this is honestly true across the board, no matter what industry you're in. Times are hard right now. Everyone is struggling in their own way and trying to make things work and to stay afloat. But I think there's often this misconception that eyeballs equals dollar signs, when that just really isn't the accurate conversion there. Like in this case for Rachel, yes, she is new, and yes, she is popping off and becoming a rising star, but it's also true that it may not be financially smart for her to be taking those leaps and bounds yet, because she is just getting started and just starting to make money off of all this, which is where this all sort of comes together. The common theme between these two: are their careers moving too fast? People have said this before about Chappell. With Chappell's meteoric rise into superstardom, launching her into this major era of transition of life, self, and career, thrust into these new spotlights and issues that she has to adapt to and learn from, and that she didn't have to before. Rachel launching this debut album and going on tour that is putting her on the map with Remy Wolf, opening for Sabrina Carpenter's tour later this year, but still having to be mindful mindful and smart about finances and can't just take off and go on tour everywhere because she is literally just starting to blow up now. It really does make you question, why do we expect this immediate perfection from these early career celebrities and public figures? Like, we haven't given them a full year on the map and we expect them to automatically know how everything's supposed to work, know how to respond to everything, be instantly able to bankroll whatever venture, whatever tour they want to go on, and understand how all of that works right off rip, when that just is not the case. You wouldn't expect that from any other career. And while some may argue that, yeah, that's expected because when you're in the public eye, you get thrown this team that's supposed to handle everything. For a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people know this, oftentimes many public figures don't have teams or don't get teams right away or are so new that the teams that they are brought on or that they bring on don't know any better than them or are actively trying to take advantage of them because they don't know what's going on. Like, it isn't just this miraculous thing where like someone blows up and gets all this fame and this magical team just descends upon them and launches them even further into superstardom and handles everything. Like, no, oftentimes it isn't that smooth of a transition, if a transition at all. And I think another good example of a new pop star that's trying to get their footing after such crazy success is Ice Spice. And that might be a controversial take because a lot of people have a lot of things to say about Ice Spice and her talent or lack thereof, depending on what your opinion is. But I think she's a great example of this because despite her being in the public eye for 2 years, she is music-wise very new in the game. Like, she just hopped on, I think it was a podcast or a radio show talking about her experience being a new artist and just launching her debut album, and already being compared career-wise to people that have been in the industry for years at a time, for multiple years, if not decades, and have gotten experience, training, A&R, that she's kind of had to piece together herself in front of everybody publicly.
Is there but you don't know anything different, so I can't even ask if there's a pressure with that
part. But you know, sometimes I do look at other acts that had time to develop, and I'm like, it's so crazy. I get compared to them all the time, but I know The Real, and they've had like 10 years of seasoning and rehearsals and all types of like studio sessions and writing camps and stuff. I've never done anything like that, so for me it's just very much like, I just be confused when they compare me to people who have done that.
And I think that Ice is such a good case study for this as well, because whether you like her music or not, or whether you liked her debut album or not, I personally first listened to not like it, and still now I only like a certain couple of songs on there. She is not the first artist or only artist to release a debut project that was not amazing. Like, many artists put out very mediocre debut albums, but they usually have time to follow up and grow and better their sound and discover more of their sound as their albums progress. But because we have such a short life cycle on celebrity and on entertainers nowadays, where we expect them to have it all figured out right off the blow up, and if they don't, you kind of toss them to the side, we don't really get a chance to see these people really delve into their craft and evolve and change and grow and become better artists. Like, sorry to just keep throwing people out there, but I also think Chloe Bailey is also another amazing example of this. Like, In Pieces, I did not love In Pieces. I think that In Pieces sounded very disjointed, and like, she was really trying to figure out what her sound was, but because she was given a chance to come out with her sophomore album, Trouble in Paradise, it's such an improvement from the first album because she was able to find her sound. She has a really cohesive body of work, and it really does show the artist's improvement. She took the time, she was given the time to sit back, learn from what happened the first time, learn and really process all that came with debuting as a solo artist after Chloe and Halle, and then coming with something amazing afterwards. But all that has taken time, and even Chloe has been in the spotlight, you can argue, for almost a decade now, maybe a little less than a decade, but in comparison to all these newer pop stars that I've talked about, that's like ages worth of time. But I guess the point I want to make from all this is that, are the new pop stars struggling? Yes, but so are all of the other older pop stars. We just weren't looking for it, and we didn't have to see it right in front of our faces all the time. The old pop acts were able to fail in silence, or able to stumble, fall, and come up on these hard times at a distance or behind closed doors because of the way that we consume media and the way that we interact with pop stars and celebrity nowadays. This is all happening right in front of us, so we're able to see them struggling. We're able to see them adjust to their fame in real time, which I don't think is fair to them or really fair to us, because I don't think we need to see that. Sure, it might be entertaining for people that like to see celebs fail, but really, if you're in it for the music and in it for the art and in it for the product that they ship out to the general public, I don't know if we necessarily need to see all of that. So yeah, of course, we need to bring back A&R. We need to give artists time to develop and really grow into their stardom. And honestly, I think it's kind of admirable for these newer artists to fail so openly, or to stumble, or to come across hardship so openly in front of everyone, and still have the nerve and the gall and the gumption to keep going, because a lot of people could not say the same, because a lot of people could not do that. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, y'all. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about all this? Do you think Chappell hates her fans? Do you think Ice Spice's album was a flop, or do you think it's just a result of the circumstances that we're currently in? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. Thanks again so much for watching. Again, if you're new to the channel, definitely subscribe, leave a like on this video, and follow me on my social medias at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Also, make sure to check out the Shameless Promo podcast and to click the link in my description to get started with Mint Mobile. Other than that, y'all, I've been Imurgency. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.